talk as the giant blueberry himself. There's a blueberry, there's a big blueberry. The other day I did a YouTube short and it went viral. I'm sure a lot of you guys like the channel because of it. So thank you guys for subscribing to my channel, and hopefully I can provide you with some more great content and entertain you at the same time. But back to the video. So on YouTube, you got 60 seconds to make a short. In 60 seconds, I have to cram in a whole lot of information. Sometimes it's not feasible to tell every part of the story in 60 seconds. I do my best to try to include the important information, and I try to make a good video so that way you guys can learn something. So in this video, it involves a Stihl Farm Boss 038 saw. The other day, a customer came into the shop with the 038 Farm Boss. He also brought another saw in with him. Both saws weren't running. The 038 Farm Boss he had bought for $100 a couple years ago, and he had rarely used it. The last time he used it was probably over a year ago. He was trying to get the saw started so he could cut some wood. He was just doing some small stuff around the house. The first thing I do when equipment comes into the shop and it's not running, if you've been watching my channel, is I do a hang cord test. The hang cord test is going to check the compression of the saw. Now, in full disclaimer, doing a hang cord test, you will have some loss of compression on older saws, and that does not mean that they're not going to run. Again, in a YouTube short, I have 60 seconds to explain all this stuff to you, and I try to include the important information. I do have other videos about repairs and stuff, and I'll show compression videos, I'll show the drop cord tests, I'll show pistons, I'll show replacing top ends. I have a whole lot of stuff out there, but for this video, I have 60 seconds to put it together and explain as much as I can in those 60 seconds. So this particular saw, the 038, did not pass the hang cord test. The saw started to gradually drop to the ground. Upon seeing that, knowing that the saw hadn't run in a while, knowing that the customer couldn't get it started, I dumped out the fuel. That's the first thing that I always do. I went ahead and tried to start the saw again. It was not running. So after that, took it back to the bench, showed the customer, and we took the muffler off the saw. After we took the muffler off the saw, we inspected the piston. The piston had significant scoring. The rings were also seized on there because of the scoring. When you have this much scoring, it's going to transfer onto the cylinder wall. If you've done saw repairs before, you know that saws can run with low compression, even down to 90 psi. But in this particular case, the piston was scored. Yes, some saws can run with some scoring. Usually what they do is they'll run and they won't idle. As soon as you take your finger off the throttle, they'll fall flat on their face. After seeing the piston, I asked the customer what he'd like to do with the saw. He said he didn't really want to put a whole bunch of money in it, especially if it was going to need some major parts replaced. I proceeded to tell the customer I could look up the part costs and see what it costs to replace those parts. The first thing I do, since I'm a Stihl dealer, is I go in and I check the OEM parts to see what is readily available for the saw. In this particular case, the pistons were available, but the cylinder was not. So I did let the customer know that information, and I also told him that I can order aftermarket Meteor cylinders. I didn't even get around to quoting the customer the parts because they weren't interested in fixing the saw. So now, when you have an issue like that, I could have replaced that top end with a Meteor replacement kit. Upon replacing that kit, I could have started the saw. I could have found that there was another issue. It could have a carburetor issue. There could be an air leak. There could be a whole bunch of stuff. So when you get into those older saws, sometimes you end up throwing good money at bad. When it comes to old saws, I love old saws. I collect old saws. I fix saws up. I do whatever I can to restore and keep stuff running. I realize the quality of the older stuff is a lot better than a bunch of plastic stuff. So I know that going into it. I love saws so much that this is the last repair job that I did. A complete teardown, disassembly, cleaning, painting, everything to get the saw functional and showroom ready. This Stihl 031 AV saw is my next project on the bench. And here's my saw collection. Saws that customers donated, customers wanted to throw away, saws that I found different places, marketplace. I found some stuff on eBay, stuff that I've wanted to restore, stuff that I've inherited, stuff I found alongside the road, stuff that customers have given me because they know that I appreciate saws. I even got this nice McCullough saw. So no, to all the Karens that got on the post and said, I just like to throw away stuff, or trash, I don't know how to fix it, or I'm just trying to swindle the guy, I'm a con man, blah, 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 blah. ton of new saws. I'm a Stihl dealer. I'm also a Husqvarna dealer, and I also appreciate chainsaws that are older and vintage. I have a repair shop. I have lots of customers' equipment on the bench getting repaired. And no, I am not afraid to work on stuff. I'm not going to tell the customer that they have to buy new stuff when I can fix the stuff. But at some point, a reasonable person will have to weigh the cost of repairs versus what a new saw is. So as you can see, I have an actual shop. I have a legitimate shop. I have all the tools that you need to fix stuff. I have a lot of specialty equipment that I have to pay for. I stock tons and tons and tons and tons of parts. And more parts. I stock lots of parts because I do lots of repairs. We have one of the largest saw inventories in the area. We have it for a reason, and that's because we have a lot of return customers. Lots of customers bring their equipment here for repairs. They bring it here because they know we can get it fixed fast. We have lots of equipment in stock. We have lots of parts in stock. Customers know that when they bring their equipment in here, it's usually a quick turnaround. The only thing that holds it up is whether the parts are in stock or not. And if you go on Stihl's website, all of our reviews are 5-star reviews. We want our customers to be happy when they leave here. We want our customers to get the most value for their money. Sometimes I have to tell the customer that their equipment is not worth fixing. Sometimes I show them the damage, I tell them the repair costs, and they decide that on their own. And no, I'm not a swindler. I am a salesman, and I am a mechanic. But anybody that works in this industry knows the margins are not very great on whole goods. So that would be your mowers, your snow blowers, chainsaws, blowers, trimmers, any of the handheld power equipment. However, we get decent margin on parts. So if I was really a con man, I would do whatever I could to talk people into fixing their pieces of crap. Because at the end of the day, it would put more profit in the register. So as a Stihl dealer, one thing that's required, you have a 3% contribution to RMF, that's Regional Marketing Fund. So every piece of equipment that I order, I have to pay 3% of that value into Stihl for advertising. And then of course, all customers like to use their plastic cards. Plastic cards cost money for the business to accept. Usually those transaction fees are upwards of 3.5–4%. Those fees all come off the whole goods price, the complete price, including the part that I have to pay to Stihl and Husqvarna and all the other vendors, not just off my profit margin. So at the end of the day, right off the bat, before you add in any of your overhead, you're already gonna be 7% in the hole. And I know lots of people work from their garage, work in their mom's basement, and they work for a case of beer or sometimes meth. When you run a legitimate business with overhead, there's a lot of extra costs to do it right. Part of those costs include specialty tools that are required to work on the equipment. Equipment like this, and I can guarantee you the guy that's working for a case of beer does not have access to this equipment. With today's day and age of the internet, any Joe Blow can go on eBay or Amazon and buy some Chinesium parts. They can buy Chinesium cylinder and piston kits. They can buy them for next to nothing. They can buy fuel lines that are too small so they leak when they're installed. They can buy air filters that don't fit properly. They can buy gas caps that leak. They can buy clutch covers that don't fit right. They can buy recoil covers that have plastic that's so brittle as soon as you pull on it too hard, it'll completely snap. So yes, you can go online and you can buy a lot of aftermarket garbage. And no, not everything aftermarket is garbage. But I can pretty much guarantee you when you go on Amazon or when you go on eBay and you search for lowest price of equipment, you are gonna find the cheapest, junkiest piece of crap there is. Especially when you're searching for carburetors. Congratulations, you can buy a $10 crappy carburetor made in China, or yes, you could buy an OEM Stihl Zama carburetor made in China, but the difference is one is made in a control factory where they have standards, and the other one is just a copycat to try to make some quick money. I've been doing this a long time, and I'm gonna tell you that I buy OEM parts as much as I can because I know they fit. I know they're gonna work, and I know they're not gonna break, which means they're reliable for our customers. I'm not gonna put a piece of crap on somebody's equipment, especially somebody that uses the equipment to make their livelihood, have them go out into the field while they have 5 guys working with them while they're cutting down trees, find out something breaks because I chose to put crappy and cheap parts on there. Now they're mad at me, look at all the money that it cost having their employees stand around. So like I said in the video on the 038 saw, my cost to do the repairs that I thought were necessary to bring that saw back to life, which I love to do, I do it all the time, we're gonna be about $300 for the customer. This particular customer was just doing some general cutting around their house. They wanted a cheap, inexpensive saw to just cut some small firewood. There are a lot of options available for $300 or less on the Stihl market, even on the Husqvarna market. You have the 170 saw, you got the 162, the 180, the 182, you've got the 172, you got the 211 Husqvarna side, the 120, 135, you got some other saws in there as well. Maybe the customer decided that they wanted to go the battery route. There's a lot of new battery options out there. A lot of the elderly customers have a hard time starting the older equipment because of the compression. When the customer comes into the shop, we go through all those issues. I specifically ask them what they're looking for and their needs so that way I can match them up with appropriate product. I'm not gonna sell an 80-year-old gentleman an 881 saw because he wants to cut some firewood. I'm gonna ask him specifically what he needs for bar length, what kind of wood he's cutting up, and how often he's gonna use the saw, so I can find out his expectations. Just like the gentleman that brought in the 038 saw, I asked him questions to find out what his expectations were. And one more thing on this particular saw, the bar and chain were shot, the sprocket was shot, there was a few other things, so if you keep calculating the extra costs on there to bring the saw back to functionality, it was gonna way exceed the $300. And no, the customer was not interested in me going on eBay or Amazon, buying some Chinese equipment and putting it on the saw. And yes, I'm fully aware that Stihl has Chinese parts on some of their equipment. But for the most part, a lot of the important stuff, including the piston and cylinder, the crankcase, and a lot of their components, are not made in China. And when products are made in China, they're in a Stihl factory in a controlled environment. And there is a reason why Stihl is the #1 best-selling saw in America, and Husqvarna is a close #2. It's because of the reliability and quality. And yes, we can get into this huge debate about whether the clone saws are comparable to the Stihl OEMs or the Husqvarna OEMs, and whether they actually outlive them, and how guys have run them for 10 or 15 years, and how the parts are great, and how everything's so inexpensive. I simply don't care. If I wanted to sell those products and I wanted to put my name on it, they would be in the shop. And I understand the economy's tough and money's tight, but sometimes you gotta throw down money to get stuff that's gonna work right. If you're happy with the clone saws, go for it. Do your thing. Pat yourself on the back. Go cut a lot of wood. I don't really care. That's great. I'm glad you're happy. I like dealing with reputable companies with OEM products. That way I can stock parts. I can have access to dealer manuals. I can have access to tech support and talk to somebody that actually speaks English. And best of all, I can get parts within a day or two. So that means my customers get their equipment back right away so they can go back out in the field and start making money with it. I'm in business to make money. And how I make money is taking care of my customers. Customers that come in to have the repairs done, knowing that when they leave the shop, it's actually gonna work out in the field, and it's gonna last a long time. Customers that come into the shop that decide they don't want that piece of equipment anymore and want to purchase something new. Customers seek my guidance because I'm knowledgeable on the products. I'm also knowledgeable on the repairs. It does not matter to me what the customer wants to do. They can buy a new product, they can have me fix their product. I could care less either way. I do lots on both sides of the shop. But at the end of the day, how I make money is making sure that my customers are 100% satisfied when they leave this shop. And no, I'm not offended, I'm not insulted by people talking crap about something that they know nothing about. One thing I found out over the years being in business is everybody thinks they're an expert in their own mind. And the internet brings out a lot of people that like to run their mouths that would never say anything to your face. And at the end of the day, I am a business. I'm a for-profit business. That means that I actually try to make money. And when I make money, that means that I have money to reinvest in my business. I can buy state-of-the-art tools to work on your equipment to make the process more efficient so I get the equipment back to you faster and charge less in repairs. That means I can hold more inventory on parts so I can get your equipment fixed sometimes the same day. And since I take care of my customers, I have a healthy business. I have lots of foot traffic. I have lots of customers coming in wanting stuff repaired. And you know what? That means that I am able to generate content for you guys based off of what the customers bring into the shop. I have a diverse customer base, and they bring me a lot of diverse equipment. And I really do like working on vintage saws. That's one of my passions. It's always cool to see if I can resurrect something and bring it back to life. I can't remember the last time I threw anything away. Even a curved shaft string trimmer that didn't work. I always try to resurrect equipment. At the end of the day, I'm not somebody's mom and dad. I'm not their keeper. and I don't get to tell them what to do with their money, how to spend it, and what they need to replace. I make good faith recommendations, and if customers ask what my opinion is, I'll tell them my opinion, honest and fairly. And there is a reason why other dealers are closing their shops in town, and our business is flourishing. You don't get repeat customers, and you don't get referrals unless you're taking care of your customers. And I'm glad there's a lot of hobbyists out there that like doing repairs on chainsaws. More power to you. But don't compare what you do in your garage to what we do in the shop here. We have a business, we have an overhead, this is our livelihood, this is how we take care of our families, and this is how we take care of our customers. So yes, you can buy some Chinese piece of crap on eBay or Amazon, get paid in a pack of beer and a pack of smokes, and you can say, hey, there's $50 in fixing this saw and bringing it back to life. Why are you screwing the guy and charging him $300? But I don't work for beer, I don't work for cigarettes, and I don't buy Chinesium crap. Some of you might get offended, and that's fine. We each get to have our own opinion. In my shop, I get to run it the way I want to. So again, thank you to everybody that watches my content. I really do appreciate having you guys on my channel. If you guys have any other video ideas, any questions, comments for me, make sure you guys drop them below and I'll do my best to answer all those for you. So again, thank you for watching my videos. I appreciate it. You guys have a good rest of your night.